welcome to part 1 of 4 of the tile tutorial set, where we'll be covering the creation of a tile set for an isometric game start to finish. All the specific measurements and specifications will be using are for one particular game, but if you're here for your own project, I hope you find what you're looking for. In this video, I'll explain what a tile set is. Let's get started. To make a tile set, or to understand what it is, you need a grid, an isometric grid in this case. Isometric projection is a type of perspective where everything is equally foreshortened. In strict isometric projection, the angle between two axes is 120 degrees. In our case, we're going to be using a sort of fake isometric projection, where the angle between two axes is 116 degrees. It's a pretty ugly number, but you could argue that our projections may be a little more approachable looking, whereas isometric projection is very clinical. But the real reason you're using this angle is because if you draw a box around this top square in our isometric projection, you get a ratio of 1 to 2. Very easy to deal with when we're working with pixel measurements, whereas in true isometric projection, the ratio is 1 to √3. Talk about ugly numbers, √3 isn't even a rational number. Moving on. Here we have our diamond drawn in a box. In our case, the size of that box is going to be 192 by 96 pixels at its largest size, 96 by 48 pixels at half of that size, and half again is 48 by 24 pixels. This is the size of our single grid unit, and thus our single tile, for all the different resolutions that we work at. Considering our single grid unit, what is a tile? It's just art that sits in that unit. So it's possible that you're familiar with tile sets in other games, such as this, where around 17 tiles are used to create an edge where two types of terrain intersect. These work great. However, what these don't include is tiles that make a single row of terrain, seen here. This wasn't originally a part of this set. As a result, the sorts of T-intersections and more interesting shapes you can use making this single row aren't part of the set. It turns out, when you include all of those, you end up with 47 tiles. That is a lot. Fortunately, over a third of these pieces are identical to others, if you just flip them horizontally. You can see here highlighted in green that these pieces are just a mirror of the one next to them. This T-intersection, when flipped horizontally, turns into this T-intersection. So once you eliminate all of these, you're left with a set of 30, which is a lot more manageable. So now that we know what a tile set is, let's go ahead and take a look at our template. So here's our floor tile template. You can see here these pale green shapes are sort of like the tile set that you just saw in the presentation slide. Let's break down the individual parts of our template. Hi Fry. So here we've got our diamond in a box, our single unit. There's obviously a lot more going on top of it though. First, you might notice there's this extra buffer of room above that single unit. This is here so that if the tile has anything on it, say like a rock or a long blade of grass, there will be some headroom for it without it getting cut off. This bumps our size up to 192 by 120 pixels from the original 192 by 96. So it makes our tiles a little bit bigger, but it allows us the ability to have a little extra artwork. Half of that is 96 by 60, and half again is 48 by 30. Let's turn our attention to the guidelines, these pink lines here over everything else. These are an underlying drawing tool which helps assure the artwork will line up cleanly. They're only here to help and aren't part of the final art, but are a vital part of the process. Now turn your attention to the lower edge area here. This is the bleed area. This little area helps assure the transition from one tile to the next is smooth. Without it, little cracks might show up between the tiles in-game, especially when a user zooms in and out freely. That's what a tile set is, and what our template looks like. And in the next video, I'll use this template to create a set of tiles and give you some tips and tricks I use to complete it. See you there!